Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 60 of A Letter to the King. If you're new to the series, it's normally my attempt to keep us up to date with what's happening in the PvP. However, we are still in the shadow of the Great White, the ever-moving, lengthening shadow of the Great White. So I'll try and keep you up to date with what's happening on the Testbed. And because there's not much happening there, I'm going to treat you to my dissertation of us and the mighty BANHAMMER, which has been wielded a fair whack in the last couple of weeks. So a bit of controversy. I've been thinking about talking about the BANHAMMER for the last 2 or 3 weeks, but because there was quite a lot of news, I knew that it would sort of overshadow any other dribble I spouted. So, literally just as I was putting this together, I noticed a little pop-up on my Facebook there. I follow Naval Action, saying that they've moved the date. It was meant to be, well, it's the 15th, so for us Australians, we live in the future. It's the 15th already for us. And you guys just waking up in Europe and America, if you're doing this on the day I make it, it's just the start of the 15th. Your maintenance has come and gone, and with it an announcement from the devs that it'll be the 16th to the 25th. They mentioned that they wanted to get one more patch onto the testbed, something they have spoken about, and I'm not quite sure if it's this that they're waiting on. Is they wanted to have a mechanic that was appropriate for changing nations should people choose to change nations. So, just a very important reminder, if you haven't been on the server since they announced the wipe and you're thinking of coming back afterwards, jump on there, get into one battle with anything, attack a cutter, anything, and make sure you get just the smallest smidgen of XP, and it will resync your character so that when they wipe and reshape stuff, your character will be there and you'll have redeemables on that particular server. Now, the instructions for all this pop up when you run the game. Well, they don't. They just tell you that the wipes are coming. But there are instructions in the forums. I've linked them on previous letters to the king. This is just a reminder. I will put a link to the announcement for the 16th to 25th in the description. And I'll also, and in that link, there's a huge big list. It's like a consolidated note of what will be coming in the patch that accompanies the Great Wipe. Now, on the testbed, well, there's nothing new really, just tinkering and fixes. So there's been no major feature or anything. And as such, that would normally mean that I've run out of stuff to say. But when you love the sound of your own voice like I do, I thought, well, come on then, there must be something else we can talk about. And I was chatting to a few lads at the weekend, and I've got a few friends on Steam. And our darling devs have been handing out the old BANHAMMER left, right and centre. It was quite funny, actually. I noticed that there's a whole bunch of folks I normally see potting around on the forums, and I wasn't seeing their gibberings. And there's been a fair whack of forum bans handed out, chat bans handed out, and indeed total bans handed out. Now, you know, it's impossible to say what's right and wrong as an observer to these things, but I just thought I'd talk about behaviour on the forums, the type of people we have on the forums, and I guess it's not really a guide on how not to get banned, but it's just a bit of a... I've been gaming for 100 years when Gandalf were a lad. I used forums before the internet was called the internet, bulletin boards and acoustic coupling modems and Usenet and so on and so forth. And in that time I have carried out a great study on the type of folks that we could loosely stereotype that we meet in any games forum, be this World of Warcraft, be it an EVE, be it Elite Dangerous, be it Naval Action, etc., etc. So, first of all, at one end of the spectrum are the nut jobs. They just want to see the world burn. These, perhaps in chat, these are the bigots, the Nazis, the homophobes, To some extent, they hide behind the fact that in a game and on a forum, we never really know who you are. If they spoke to this, if they behaved this way in public, unless they were part of some sort of supremacist movement or Reich, you would probably find they'd be locked up or at least running a large nation. So these are the nut jobs. Now, slightly to the other side of the nut jobs, there's what I like to refer to as the spurned lover, passion defiled. This is the person who had a dream. Their dream was what they thought was the dev's dream. They could see the future. This was the great hope they'd always wanted. This was the game they'd always wanted. And then bit by bit, feature by feature, it moves away from that dream. And really they're angry that their dream has been taken away from them. They love the game, but they're really, really angry that X is no longer Y. And these people can be, they're normally very articulate. They write walls of text, quite often without punctuation or spaces, so that your eyes bleed. You know, the ones where you get the 47-page dissertation on why the yard arm on the ship is glinting too much in the sun that's setting in the east when you're in a battle instance and there's not enough fog. So there's the sort of spurned lover. They love the game, but some small thing has turned them into a sort of raging, psychotic ball of angst. Next on the pecking order, as it were, we've got the inaccurate, right but wrong. And this is many of us. I mean, I think nut jobs, a nut job is a thing you are. I think we can all become the spurned lover, and we can all become the inarticulate, right but wrong. I always remember well, I was going to buy a used car, so we were looking them up in, you know, buyacarfromme.com or whatever. And me and the ex ambled down to this bloke's house, and the photo looked great. But when we got there, the car it was all a bit knackered. The tyres were looking old. The interior didn't look particularly well cleaned. The paint was sort of just about hanging onto the chassis of the car. And you know, the bloke who was really keen on selling it, he was a nice enough fella. He sort of said, you know, do you want it? And in my head, I was sort of thinking, I'd sort of say, oh, look, mate, it's not the sort of thing we're looking for, you know, because it kind of looked crappier than our existing car. But I just thought I'd say, nah, mate, it's not the sort of thing we're looking for, you know, it's a bit too small or whatever. But my lovely ex, who used to have more of a sort of shorter way of letting you down, basically said that it was shit and it was dirty and that he shouldn't even be trying to sell it. He's a disgrace. And the poor fellow was left with no legs. And, you know, technically she's right. And she was righter than me. But the way she said it, his children had bruises and his grandchildren had bruises and they weren't even born yet. It was that hard hitting. And we see this in the forums. I know I sail with quite a few boys who, they're great fun. Like great fun, you're laughing your head off when you're sailing around with them. But they can be a little bit unsubtle when they don't like something. And so technically these people are right, but their delivery could perhaps use a tickle and a feather. The next group is probably what most people are. This is the gamer. A large number of them are essentially lurkers. They might ask questions. And they're sort of the quiet majority to some extent. Most games you'll find will have like 5,000 players who read the forums, but only 1,000 who bother to post. Occasionally, when they're particularly irked or confused or befuddled by something, you might get that "I don't normally post but" type question. And this is, you know, the normal people. This is most people. The next group is, if you like, the community champion. These are the people who make the APIs so that you can get a map and work out how long it'll take to sail from A to B. These are the people who spend 4.5 hours working on a suggestion as to how to make the shallows more accurate, or they spend weeks of their life running a community-managed competition or battles against each other, or they're constantly organising duels. These are the people who breathe the innovation into the game and push the game along. Now, again, I think... I'm going to sneeze in a minute, I've got something up my nose. I think these people here in this middle band here, this is all of us at different stages. With most games, we might be this guy. I mean, this might be me on, say, Diablo 3, which I used to play a lot. This is me when I've had a hard day at work. And this is me in Total War Rome when they completely knobbed it up and made it into a fucking arcade game for ADT children who can't stand the fact that 2 units might be slogging it out against each other for 3 minutes, which is about how long they want the whole battle to go. And on a good day, this is me where, for the love of the game, I'm putting in that extra yard. Of course, there is one more type, and typically this is what this person pretty much calls anybody from about here down, and this is the fanboy, who the next patch could be turds covered in cancer, and they would explain about why this is the greatest turd with the highest quality cancer the world has ever seen. Now, to some extent, in my humble opinion, and this is a very opinionated piece, so bear with me, these two people here have genetic signatures. You rarely are one of these in one game and not in another. This is the nature of the beast. This here is a scale that we all sort of oscillate up and down depending on the particular game and how much we get into it. My grandma used to say, if you're in a room of 10 people or more, look around, because there's always one idiot in a group of 10, and if you can't see that idiot in the room, you should leave. And so this is us. We oscillate up and down here depending on the game and how we're feeling and how life's going and all that sort of good stuff. Now, the problem, and now I'm getting into neuroscience, which is a type of science that probably isn't really a science, but they want to pretend it's a science so people listen to them. Fear is actually fear and anger is actually a more compelling force than fun and love. And this is a very natural human thing, because fear generally means is like an emotion, and anger is an emotion that will save your life, whereas fun and love will just make it more enjoyable. So, you know, a lot of folks that I sail with from Europe think that Australia is a land filled with creatures that are going to kill you. And quite literally, some people don't want to go to Australia. You're fucking spiders the size of your hands. And indeed, we do have spiders the size of your hand. And indeed, I was taking my kids to school, and I went to open the door on my car. Now, you know I'm telling a spider story now. At that point in time, I was telling her I'm going to take the kids to school story. As I put my hand into the door handle to open it, a huntsman spider the size of my hand jumped out. Hang on a second, let me get you a picture of a huntsman spider, because you need to see this. Not jumped out, unfurled itself into my hand, and it was about the same size as my hand, and it looks like a spider from a horror story. There we go. That's a huntsman spider right there, and it's very hairy. And look, I don't know what these are, but they're probably going to kill you. And I'm not sure what's in that bit, but I'm fairly sure it's going to kill you. And this bit here is where it thinks about the fact it's going to kill you. And this thing unfurled into my hand. Now, actually, huntsmen, and if you've lived in Australia for a little while, you know that unless you're about to die anyway, a bite from a huntsman's not going to kill you. They're painful and a little bit debilitating, but it's not going to kill you. Anyway, I actually invented a new Olympic sport that day. It's called the chuck and run. I threw the spider about 40 metres into the air, and in a unbroken movement sprinted about twice the speed of Usain Bolt in the opposite direction. And to help me move quicker, I used every profanity I'd ever heard, and I invented 3 brand new profanities, which probably be in Webster's Profanity Dictionary right now. My kids, who at the time were about 5 and 7, thought this was the funniest thing in the entire world, and got back into the car and then lampooned me for being a scaredy cat, etc. So as I was driving them to school, I pointed out that huntsmans live in 2s, which they do, and that was the male that was in my hand, and the female is normally about twice the size and must be somewhere in the car, and we just don't know where it is. So that was good. So for the 30 minutes while I drove them to school, they sat in the car and tried as hard as they could not to touch any part of the car, as they sort of focused on levitating and generally quivering in fear. Fear is a very, very strong motivator. So is anger. So when we hear the angry, grumpy voices up here, which is quite often by a smaller percentage of the community, 1%, 5%, 15%, whatever. The folks down this end here, which is most folks, are drawn in to this angst, to this tirade. And the devs, of course, they'll have released a patch with 20 features. And 20 individuals will have complained about each one of those features. Now, arguably, that means 19 individuals thought those features were quite good, but not good enough to write about them. So actually, they might have something that's pretty much 90% right. But this group here, this bloke here goes nuts. This person here gets super grumpy about one particular thing. This person here typically goes, well, that's a bit of a problem, but says it in a way like, because you're a dick. And then these people get drawn into this grumpy monkeys world here. And the devs really, and then this person here just gets angry at anybody up here, even deigning to complain about the smell of the particular turd that is the topic of discourse. So it's very, very difficult to moderate this, because you've poured your heart and soul into making these changes. You're generally doing it because quite often these people have said it's what they want, right? And then you get hit by all of this noise. Now, bans for nut jobs, you spew out some Nazi shite in chat, you're bigoted, calling some religion or whatever, and seriously bigoted, not just like the odd joke, right? We don't live in, nut jobber band or anything. You're constantly spewing bile into the forums. It's not just a joke. You're not putting the odd picture up there. You're not having a bit of a lend, but it's hardcore, pooping upon things. Then, yeah, I understand that, to be honest. I think for the rest of us, though, who maybe step over the line, warning slaps and short bans for repeat offenders and the internally, the spurned lovers, as it were. Because a lot of the folks I've seen being banned, these are people who I thought were some of the most passionate and pro-naval actioners in the community. Now, one of the things that old man Jay has learnt over his years is it's very, very difficult with the written word to get tone, right? So you read in the voice of your mood, not the mood of the person who wrote it. So by example, my lovely wife, she who must be obeyed and bowed to at every possible moment, might text me. In her mind, she might be saying, hey, is the washing out? Whereas I'm at home and something terrible has happened. My beautiful Victory has been attacked by a bunch of dirty French and surprises who've spent 3 days stern raking me, and eventually I've sunk. I've then gone back to the clan warehouse to build a replacement Victory, and some bastard has withdrawn all the compass wood. So I'm not in a very good mood. So I don't read, hey, is the washing out? I read, hey, is the washing out? And I'm like, well, if I'm a busy captain of the oceans, I do not have time to worry about the washing. Surely we have staff for this. So you read something in the voice of your mood. And sometimes I think the devs who've maybe read a couple of nutjob posts, they've read a couple of spurned lovers posts, they then may read perhaps one of the inarticulate posts, or even one of the gamer posts, or even one of the champion posts, and they carry, you know, the salt and the vinegar from the hard day they're having. And so you might say something that you think's a bit of a joke, it's a bit of a piss take, and or it's a bit of a salient point, but you didn't bother to put cotton wool and fluffy bunnies and rainbows all over it. And of course the devs hit you over the head with the banhammer. So I think devs, as the game wipes, this is my ironic metaphor for dealing with the community at the moment. I'm going to let you work it out. So devs, wipe yourself as well, boys. Jump into the oceans of calm, and like I say, ban the nut jobs. Ban the nut jobs. However, let's love the community, because this game is not going to work if there's not enough of us. So, sometime in the next 9 days, please, I can't play Diablo 3 much longer. Here comes the wipe. It's a bit preachy, today's letter to the king. Sorry about that. Let's start afresh, boys and girls, as if it's our first day in the game, and not harken back, because this is a completely different game now. Let's not harken back to some of the creature comforts that we got used to when Mummy and Daddy were looking after us all the time. I strongly implore you to join a clan. Indeed, now that we're splitting the servers, huge mistake, I've probably said this enough. Join a clan. I think numbers are going to be down, and I think the best way we're going to enjoy it, those of us who want to play the game, get into a clan. Let's not have 50 clans. Smaller numbers of larger clans. We're going to need each other. And if you're a bit shy, or you don't really know about clans, or you think, well, I'm not good enough to be in a clan, I guarantee you in every nation there'll be 3 types of clans. There'll be, and that there might only be one, but it has all this in it, but there's 3 types of clans, right? There's the hardcore, let's go and bash things clan, and they might be a bit selective about who they take into a port pal. At the other extreme, there's like the social sandal wearing clan who just, you know, let's hang around and we'll sail around and bash gankers and things. And then in the middle, there's kind of the happy medium. Yes, we want to do organised stuff, but, you know, we're not going to min-max, or we're not quite, you know, we're not going to force you to be sailing a victory with Sabiku fittings and so on and so forth. So I honestly, join a clan, and you can start with one of the sort of, you know, more fun clans, and then if you get yourself really into the game, and look, I'll tell you, I am not making this up, I learnt more in about the first hour of being in a clan. There were 3 guys who I'm hoping are still playing, and they just poured help on me. You know, they literally gave me 15 or 20 things that I just didn't know. And in an early access game where there's no tutorials and there's no real guides, and if you go through the forums, there's 37 versions because everything's changed 6 times in the last 10 minutes. Just jumping on TeamSpeak, you don't even have to say much. You can listen to other people's questions. Join a clan. And how do you join a clan? I don't know how to join a clan, man. I don't join a clan. Sail around for an hour, get your bearings, go, oh yeah, this is okay, this is much better than playing Rust, and then go into your national team chat, assuming you haven't been chat banned, and say, are there any clans recruiting? And then you can qualify that with, I'm quite experienced, I'm looking to get into some organised stuff, or I'm a bit of a noob, or I've been playing for a while but I haven't been in a clan before. Right, so set some expectations. And I know a lot of players are quite young, and maybe you've got a bit of a squeaky voice. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, there's nothing wrong with being young. It's not your fault. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to get older. All right, it's one of these things you can improve without doing anything other than not dying. So don't worry if you've got a bit of a squeaky voice. If the clan doesn't like you because you've got a squeaky voice, leave them, bunch of bastards, and join a nicer clan. And equally, if you're, you know, you've got a funny accent, people who come from my neck of the woods are often accused of having funny accents. We spoke like this for 2,000 years. It's the rest of you who got your bloody stupid accents. You got a funny accent, doesn't matter. We had a, you know, you can have a Spanish accent and sail with the Brits. You can have a German accent and sail with the Brits. You know, you can even come from Scotland. It's very important that disabled gamers can have fun. Now, the other thing is, if you see something in the game you don't like, get into the forums and let them know. But don't be that grumpy monkey. You know, do it constructively. The other thing is, if it's not for you, I don't need your poo. So if it's not for you, then go and play something else. You can put a goodbye post, and then we'll all reply, "Can I have your shit?" So maybe we do need your poo. But, you know, you don't need to throw stones on the way out. Just don't let the door hit your ass. So hoist the mainsail, chaps. And let's look forward to a bit of fun. I'm really missing my port battles and working with the boys. They're all playing World of Warships, which I can't play on the American server because the ping truly is stupid for World of Warships. So I'm really looking forward. Hurry up and wipe it, for God's sake. And I think that's it. Sorry it was a bit preachy. I didn't actually set out to be so preachy. I just set out to try and fill 20 minutes, give you something to listen to while you're driving to work or meant to be studying. So I enjoyed it. Let's hope the next time we speak, we've done the white. There'll be no bloody PvP port battles, by the way, or very few in the first week, because God knows how you meant to get hostility up. So yeah, I hope you like that. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I'll see you in the forums, and I'll request them to ban you.